Welcome to the last part in the Three River Valley series for Workers and Resources Soviet Republic, and we're picking up on the 10th of November 1992. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this series to the end is simply down to the release of the Maintenance and Waste Update. This was released on the 31st of July 2023, and the reasons is the fact that implementing the update into this existing series has been both a success and a failure, and by that I mean that I was really surprised that I was able to put the new update into this working economy of 60,000 odd people and get it to work in the sense that there was no major collapse. That was the practical success. The failure is a little bit more subtle in the sense that what the process of implementing the waste management has had two impacts. The first one is that the sheer concentration on implementing the new mechanics means that quite large parts of the economy have been neglected, and that's started to create problems which are starting to stack up, mainly around the way that the workers are responding to the situation. And the second one is the fact that the process, looking around the economy, is starting to become very apparent how much the new update has changed the dynamics of the game, especially with respect to city planning, the logistics and demands, and also the sheer amount of traffic that's now moving around. And so what that means is that to keep this series going, I would have to do a lot of re-engineering, a lot of detailed work, and at the best it's going to be a patch up, because effectively in some areas the only way I could actually fix it or deal with the situation would be to literally tear areas of the map down and rebuild them and redesign them. And the reason for that is that the logistics, the economy and the cities are laid out for the pre-release economic model. And probably looking here, you just see that one of the growing problems I've got, and I'd like to say a big thank you to Vimes for his comment when he mentioned this as well. That is that the new update has created a lot of traffic, which, while in its own way is being managed, it is starting to have repercussions around the map, causing traffic jams like this. You can see here, and that you've got traffic moving through urban areas, and there's bottlenecks starting to build up, and these traffic jams are becoming quite a regular part of the messaging in here. In fact, just get rid of that so I can show you the clear things. So traffic management is going to become a big issue going forward for this map, and even if you start a new playthrough, and the only way you can really solve it is by taking new approaches to the city layout and also the way that the waste is actually collected. Now I'll talk a little bit more about how the waste is collected later on, but the first thing I want to do is start by showing you another potential problem. This was an unexpected problem, and this shows the fact that the kind of logistics setup is wrong. Now if I come here and we go into here and I click here, leave this as always on. I don't know if you guys can see it. In fact, probably the easier way to illustrate this is this. Now we're on the 13th of November, and you'll see that all the fields in this area are completely packed with crops. And the reason for that is that I've been a little bit too successful with respect to fertility, because all the fields in this area are 150%. That means all the large fields are producing 450 tons of crops. And despite building an extra storage silo here, I've got no use for all these crops that I'm producing. And of course it becomes a self-reinforcing situation, because if I don't collect the crops, there's this kind of mechanic where if uncollected crops are seen to decompose down in the field and increase the fertility. So there's a kind of catch-22 situation that the very fact that we're producing too many crops is keeping the fertility high. And so the only way I could actually use the output of this farm is find some way to use it. And I've already made a start by selling surplus food and clothes to try and consume it, but I don't think it's ever going to work. So this is always going to be a little bit of a mess from now on. Now, here's the message. Oh, this one is one that I get quite often, just to come up to here. This is down to the fact that the slow loading speeds, because my poor layout of this collection area here. Again, this is another reason why I don't think I can carry on, because this is terrible. It needs to be completely reworked. In fact, I'll be completely upfront. If I did want to carry on with this series, what I would do is wind back to the save save that I made just before I started implementing waste management, and I would do it all over again based on the knowledge I obtained by actually implementing it this time around, and the waste management system would be completely different. But the question is that really going to be worth the effort? And that is something that, well, so hopefully this starts to give an idea of the kind of problems that are building up in the map. And now there's some more subtle ones which I'm going to be a little bit more problematic as well. One is unemployment. Come in here. If I should put the unemployment on. And now if you actually see here that it says I've only got 5% unemployment across the map, which personally I feel that's too high for a map of 65,000 people. I'd like to see that down to about 2%. But what the problem I've got is, because I've been neglecting my economy, or this one's actually sorted itself out a little bit, is I've got concentrations of unemployment. And one thing I've noticed is, like here, I've got a concentration of unemployment here. You can see it's really bad. And what that does is affects the loyalty. So as you can see, the loyalty down here is down to 59-60%, where I think the overall loyalty is 57%, so it's dropped a little bit. But you can see the loyalty is quite low, partly because of the fact that the unemployment. And also I think the happiness is, no, the happiness is not too bad. Now, another curiosity that I've had with relation to loyalty is, and I'm still trying to work out what's actually causing this, and that is that I've got the occasional black spots here. You can see the happiness is high, but if I put the loyalty on, you see the loyalty down here is 40%, 54%, 44%, and it's all on this end where, and you can see it's right across this city, but none of them are actually complaining, and I'm not exactly too sure what's actually causing this. And I mean, it could be simply down to the fact that because I haven't been managing the economy whilst I was implementing the new update, that the loyalty has slowly decayed, and because I didn't put many monuments in here. So what I probably would need to do is put loads and loads of monuments in here and try and build them up. But I just don't feel that inclined to go to all that effort to try and get that going. I think part of the problem in this area, which reduced the loyalty very low, is that I had 2 universities here, one here, one here, and I was doing a lot of research in this area. And I think what happened was that my educated workforce started to drop, because of course, was it the breakdown here? You can see here I've got a, what's that? 88% workforce with higher education. So I think what's happened is possibly that my workforce is too educated, because this is another subtle context that if you've got a highly educated workforce, they need more electronics, so they expect more. So maybe my workforce is now too educated because I put in these universities. So again, that's something else that is kind of slowly grew over time, and it's now having a bit of a consequence. Yeah, it just comes back to the fact that it would take a lot of effort to sort this all these little niggling little problems out. And of course, another area where there's potential problems is logistics. Well, one that's growing, I wouldn't say it's a problem at the moment, but it will become a problem eventually, is the fact that the fuel output from here is not sufficient for the map now, because of course by implementing the new update, I've got lots and lots of new vehicles. Then of course you get situations like this. Now this is a product of using the modded distribution offices that don't have a drop-off point. This is a tip for anyone who's thinking about building modded buildings now. What you need to do is, even in a distribution office now, or any building where you've got vehicles in it, you do need a drop-off point to accommodate these covered holes now, because effectively what you've got here, if we kind of come into here, and if I just let this run very, very quickly, you see it's being repaired, but this truck here is effectively blocking the entrance, so these vehicles can't leave. And of course there's also a consequence that if this was during the middle of the winter, so if the snow pile came along here to plough this area, it would also get blocked. This is actually stopped, so it looks very much like we could be out of resources. No, he's finished, I think. Have a look. Yeah, so it's finished now. Oh, that's a bit of perfect timing, wasn't it? But if you had a very busy distribution office, that would block it off. So what I would suggest is that if you're choosing mods, be a bit careful about where you put your crucial key mods in. Other things, and again, here's another potential problem as well, in the sense that I've got 2 trucks here waiting. So far I've got away with it, but if this, I don't know what the maintenance on this building is at the moment, it's 21%. But what could happen is that if this building goes into maintenance mode, because I've got 2 trucks here basically picking up the delivering coal, and this will eventually could get blocked, and then what could happen is the construction office won't be able to repair here. Oh no, this guy's still dropping off. Maybe this has got more slots. So I have had problems here. Oh, here comes the snow. It's that type of kind of growing problem. As I say, I would need to try and sort out the fuel system, because if you follow the series, you'll be aware that I'm using ships to bring the fuel up to here, and I have had cases here where the fuel in this dump has got incredibly low. Looks like the tanker's here, because simply not because the tanker deliveries aren't working, it's just the sheer amount of fuel that's being consumed here because of all the new trucks that are running around the map. And it's also worth noting that part of the reason why I've kind of got away with the fuel situation, and also the waste management situation with my industries, is the fact that because I've been so focused on the implementing the waste management system, all my current construction expansion projects like I had over here have all effectively shut down. So they're not doing, so there's no building being here. You can see this was, the game finished off this because I've planned nothing here. So that means that my kind of, a lot of my industries are working at, we could say, kind of low capacity. Is probably the best way to explain it. So like, for example, the brick factory is probably, yeah, cannot export bricks. I think the mech factory is the same. I think the steel industry, that's the steel industry. So I've kind of got away with the waste management system simply because these industries have been working at a very low level, and so of course if I start to ramp up the economy, start expanding again, I will then need to find some ways to manage the logistics and also the waste management, although I think the waste management here would be quite strong. It's just that I just don't really want to spend time working on that area there, and as I've already mentioned, I don't like this here, so I'd literally have to go back and rework it. Another area is the unemployment. I think I've got quite bad unemployment here because I kind of built this area up here. Another traffic jam. Where's this? Yep. I can almost guarantee that there's going to be, yep. Now, this is another little bit of a problem I got here. What we got here is we've got a transfer station here, which is picking up the biological waste. But you can see these are loading. These are loading at a fairly, or loading and unloading. And what's happened is that the actual the snowplow has got caught in the middle. And what you see now is this is starting to build up a little bit. Now you can fix it by just doing this. So it's sent back to workplace. What that would do is get rid of that guy, and but it just means that I've got a lot more traffic jams coming in here, and you can see it's now started to kind of run there. The reason for that is that this transfer station has got a single cargo drop off and pick up. What it really needed was two, but I didn't have the space to fit that in. It's just these small niggling little points that go, but it's also quite an interesting exercise just letting this run, because with buildings that kind of interest me, because something I'm not too sure about is what happens if the waste fills up in a heating plant, because some industries, if the waste is not removed from the internal garbage, what will happen is they will shut down. And I haven't yet been able to detect whether the power station or heating plant filling up, but I'm kind of a little bit worried about that consequence as well. And of course I've still got things like cleaning up this mess as well, which still needs to be done. And say the brickworks here is working, but it's again, you can see it's not working at high capacity. Anyway, guys, I'm kind of just rambling along a little bit. So what I want to do now, so I've kind of spent a lot of time talking about the problems. Now what I want to do is talk a little bit about the solution, because again, Vimes kind of mentioned about the fact that building high density cities now is going to be quite tricky due to the sheer amount of traffic. See, look, just building up a little bit here. And I think in some ways now we've got to take a completely new approach, because, well, if I go back up to here, I'll show you what I think is kind of a standard approach to building a town, because I planned this town before I started implementing waste and that. And the kind of general approach now is to have a crossroads in the center. You build all your main support buildings around here. So we've got the shopping mall, the hospital, the cinema. It's all built in the center. Then you kind of build your residential stuff around the outside. Of course, this was planned before the waste, so this is not particularly that efficient, because all these buildings are here. And then of course I put the school in there, and of course it's often quite common to put the bus station in the center of the city. Now the downside of that is that if you've got loads and loads of waste trucks running around the city coming in, like a bit like here, because I'm using this train station as a major pickup point, you start to get a lot more traffic running around the center of the city, because of course you've got the buses coming in here, picking up, dropping off. Thank you, game. And of course in the winter you've got snow plows, you've got the garbage trucks coming on here. And I've been kind of trying to think of ways that you could reduce the number of trucks wandering around the town. And this is another reason why I want to start again, because I want to work on some town designs. Simply because, well, I think it will work. And I think town design is going to be the key to building a very large economy, especially if you're going to build large, dense cities. And happiness is too low. Where are you? Yep. Again, I just keep getting these random happiness. Looks like we've got a water supply problem here as well, which is it's possible that the water supply is down to the fact that I built all these buildings up here and they've got a workforce in them, and that's what's actually causing a problem, because I've overloaded the water supply system. Another little problem that would have to be dealt with. Anyway, so what I want to do is just kind of talk a little bit about or illustrate something that I've kind of been thinking about town design, and I've got a bit of an example here. And what I'm kind of thinking is that, say for example, say you were building a suburb here. We got a shop here, and what I'm kind of considering is I'm going to pick up on these two buildings here, and then what I want to do is use the large kind of garbage pickup points. Now you could put in, oh, stop that, because if you put in say a large pickup container here, this has got storage for 2.2 tons of mixed waste. It's a little bit low, so what I'm thinking is that maybe using these containers, say for example, it's a small one here, which is 52 tons. This one's got 156. I think maybe we could just put in a small one here like this, and I think for demonstration purposes we'll just put it in like this. And this one, it does use, these do use large containers, don't they? So we put in a building like that, and here, do that. I think we'll go put it on auto build. Build this. So what you do is create a central collection point like this, and it's got the ability to do it. And of course you could use the big one. And then what I'm thinking is just an asphalt path. Like that. Build a little something like that, connecting that, build this in, take a footpath out there. There's a footpath coming out that way, so maybe we'll just take that in there like that. And if I show you the range here, you can see that these are both connected. And then if you're going to expand this out, let me just see, residential, and then what you do is you kind of put block like that. I mean, obviously this isn't a final design, this is just an example. And of course you need to set the capacity of the collection point is like that. Yeah, I don't want the citizens to move in. That would mess up my economy even more, so let's build this up like that. So effectively what you'd be doing is building up a kind of a centralized collection system like this. You can see that this would have a connection to all these buildings here. And what that would mean is that rather than having lots and lots of these small trucks running around, you could basically put together a whole waste disposal system based on large containers. But in the process of building the city, you'd have to ensure that you get really good coverage, which means you'd have to use the extensive use of this to ensure that you've got the full coverage of all buildings. And that means that, as I said, rather than having all these little trucks running around collecting up small amounts from different little containers scattered all over the map like he had to put in here, you'd build this kind of central disposal system. And then what you need to do then is possibly put in connections, like put a footpath around the back or something, or a road connection like this. I know I'm using asphalt roads, but asphalt footpaths. I think asphalt footpaths will play a bigger role going forward. So maybe we'll just come into there, back to there. And then these would have the connections out the back like that. Like that. And then what you do is put these other support systems on the outside. And then of course if you've got a concentration like this, and say you needed to send the workforce out here, rather than having the bus stop in the center like I've got here, so rather than having a big centralized bus stop, what you'd have is the bus stop would be on the outside. So probably what I'm really saying is that you're going to turn the city inside out. And what that would mean is that what you'd have in the center here is just your utility vehicles. Then, as Vimes mentioned in a comment, was that using more of our traffic signs here to ensure, say, to keep trucks out, anything that's not kind of wanting to deliver. So you'd have to use more of the traffic signs to get things working. But I think this would work, but it would take a lot in the way of design. And this is another reason why I want to start a new city, because I want to experiment with different types of town design. I think I'm actually looking at some town plans of what you'd call planned cities, just to get some ideas. And I think I've now just got to a point where I'm probably starting to bore you guys, because it's a very in-depth subject, and it really needs to be taken into a context of a new series. I think just to finish this video off, I just want to talk a little bit about the new series. Now, I've got a bit of a dilemma, because my original plan was to do an early start. Unfortunately, I don't think that's possible, mainly down to the fact that the numbers of mods that are currently available. Just to give you an example, the large waste truck that's, I mean, there is one available in 1900. That is Nova's steam powered one, but it has a top speed of 18 kilometers an hour. And the next large container waste truck doesn't appear until the late 50s. I mean, there is some small ones that come in. I think there's a small one that comes in the late 1930s. But the number of vehicles to implement waste management is quite restricted at the moment. I mean, I'm accepting it will grow over time. I've been looking at the various buildings, and I don't want to start in 1900 or even 1928 like I did with this series, because the buildings just won't fit into the context. The next series will be a 1960 start. I might try and push it a little bit earlier if I can, just for the fun of it. Now, I kind of got a choice between a random map and a custom map that I have been building for several months now for that 1900 start. So, and I'm very tempted now to actually use the early start map that I've created for the new series, because I think it'd be quite an interesting map to play on. And I've actually done two versions of it. One is what I would say for players who wanted to start in the 1960s. It's got a few more resources, and then I've got the one I planned in for the 1900 start. So so what I'm going to do is spend a little bit of time thinking about what the options are. I do need to set the custom maps up so that they can be published, and then what I'll do, guys, is I'll make a final decision. What I will say is, if you've got any opinions on which type of map you'd like to see, I think you'll be quite interested in the custom map, because it has an unusual start point, which might be attractive to some players. So if you've got any opinions on what type of series you want to see, whether you want to see an earlier start date, what type of map you want to see, feel free to chuck it in the comments. So this is where I'm going to leave it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed the series. And until next time, whatever you do, enjoy your gaming.